Hey everyone, it's good to be back. Here with part two of chapter 8 of Miles Morales Spider Man. I know the last time I read was 8 months ago, and I do acknowledge that if you were here before and you started reading with us, that you've probably moved on, and that's perfectly fine. For the new viewers that are just finding this series, I don't want to leave you hanging like I left everybody else. So if you're new, if you're back, there's a cat. Sorry, there's a cat over there. It's my sister in law's cat, Jasper. There's also a Bowser costume, some slides back there. There's trash behind me. I'm in the process of just organizing and moving everything, so just don't mind all that stuff happening in the background. I thought, if I wait for the perfect time, I'll never get back into this. And I do have, again, a stack of books, and some of you guys are leaving comments about other recommendations. What I could try to do is start a few books at the same time and just start different playlists, and that way it might be nice for you guys to. Maybe I'll try to read a chapter of a couple of these books and just start playlists going down, and then you can just follow along with the different playlists. Again, I do appreciate all the support, all the comments, and I just hope that at the end of the day, my goal as an educator is just to make sure that kids are growing and that they are learning and that they have something to look forward to, and you start believing more in yourselves. It's always been my philosophy is do what's best for kids and help however I can help. And I know that since I started reading this, there's been more than a few of you that have reached out and said thank you so much. So that's what I'm here for. All right, let's do a little cutscene. You can tell I'm not big on editing. I'm just here to read and just hang out. All right, so I watched my last video and it was clear I was pretty tired, but started reading chapter 8 and it seemed that things were getting pretty heavy. So I picked up where we're leaving off here. Looks like Alicia and Miles were stuck in a room with Mr. Chamberlain and they were having a pretty heavy conversation. So that's where I'll pick up. Alicia stormed out of the room in the midst of the clamor of squeaks and screeches. Miles followed. Morales, could I have a word with you before you leave, please? Chamberlain said, stopping Miles in his tracks. Miles stepped up to the old man, who had taken 2 erasers in his hands, got right up on him, close enough to see white hairs hanging from his nostrils, and chafed skin outlining his lips, close enough to take him out. You know, Chamberlain began, as long as you stay where you belong, in the place you made for yourself, you'll survive. Then Chamberlain took the 2 erasers and clapped them together and asked, "Oh, and how's the job?" And watching Miles' face crack beneath the skin in the midst of the cloud of chalk dust, Chamberlain added finally, "What a tangled web we weave." All right, and that's where I left off last. After a class like that, an experience like that, Miles needed to do something with all that rage. He can go into camouflage, kick over trash cans, put holes in walls. He could do what he'd done for a few days before, go looking for trouble, save someone else from it, and do it all behind a mask, letting Spider-Man do Miles' dirty work, to somehow cleanse himself. Or maybe he could approach Alicia humbly, and now get on board with organizing something with the Dream Defenders, something to speak out against Chamberlain. But before he could decide on any of these things, buzz, a text message. Miles rammed the door of the building open, the hinges challenged by the force, and was blinded by the sun. He turned his back to block it out so he could check his phone. He figured it was Genki asking about what happened in Chamberlain's class, but it wasn't. 2:51 p.m. One new message from Dad. Tomorrow morning. And then another one came through. Buzz. 2:53. One new message from Dad. Austin. And those 3 words were enough to help Miles get a grip and dial himself down. That and what he found when he finally got back to the dorm. Genki being Genki. Music was blasting. Hip-hop from the 80s. Old breakbeat stuff that Genki had found online. Stuff that Miles' father talked about whenever he was trying to prove a point about what real hip-hop was. Genki was stepping, sliding, gliding around the room in his socks, ticking, popping, rocking, dancing like he'd just won the lottery. When Miles came in the room, Genki roboted his way over to him, a silly grin on his face. He held his hand out for a 5. Miles slapped it, and Genki waved his arm up to his shoulder and down his arm again, as if Miles had just sent an electric current through him. Then he stopped the music. Is this what you do when I'm not around? You're just not playing, and you're not playing video games? Miles asked. Maybe. I mean, sometimes. How do you think I keep up this physique? Yankee wiped sweat from his forehead, plopped down on his chair, and reclined to its back legs. Psych, nah. I heard about what happened in a reality TV show that is Chamberlain's class, and I knew you would be in a funky mood, so I figured this would at least take some of the edge off. By putting you in a real funky mood. Yankee nodded slowly. Thanks, man. Miles threw his backpack on his bed. Took a seat. But I'm okay. My pops told me we're going to go see my cousin. Well, Austin, tomorrow. Word? Yeah, but it doesn't mean seeing you pretend to be Crazy Legs. Was that his name? Crazy Legs? Whose name? Never mind. Just saying, I still appreciate you trying to make me feel better, dude. Well, to be honest, it was for me too, Yankee said. Man, it's Friday, and you know better than anybody. That means I gotta go home to my weird house. Yankee cracked his knuckles, stared at his own reflection in a black screen of his turned-off television. And guess what? Because I'm not going to be around on Sunday, my pops is going to come over tonight to do, like, the family dinner thing. So Friday night will basically be the three of us sitting there quietly, eating kimchi jjigae. Kijai? Oh, sounds delicious, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And trust me, the pork and potatoes and all that are good stuff, but it don't taste the same when nobody's talking. And I bet it's going to taste even worse with all this happening on a Friday. A Friday, Miles. Yeah, I hear you. It sucks, so I just needed to get it out, you know? Miles thought of all the plans that he had been running through his head before the text from his dad. Yeah, I do. Yankee turned to Miles. You should try it. What? No, nah. Come on, man. It's just us in here. Yankee got up, turned the music back on. The bass was thumping, bouncing off the plastered walls. He bobbed his head. Let me see what you got, homie. Just let yourself go. Yankee shook out his arms while Miles crossed his. We have to go. They had a train to catch. We will, as soon as you hit me with the move. I know what you're doing, Yankee. What? Just trying to help a friend chill out? Trying to help a dude I consider my brother remember that life is still good? Trying to remind the great Miles Morales that nothing can stop him. And that's a cause for celebration? What's wrong with that? Whatever. Miles sighed because he knew Yankee wouldn't stop until he complied. And he needed to get off campus as soon as possible. Let's just get this over with. Miles stood up, rolled his neck from right to left to right to loosen up. Just feel the music, bro, Yankee said encouragingly. Miles bobbed his head to the beat, and when he felt he caught it, he started to do something. One leg shot up, the other, and then some kind of Irish jig. His arms stiff as boards, swung out in front of him like a zombie's. It was bad. Bad. So bad, Yankee immediately cut the music while Miles was lurch? You know what? This was a bad idea. Let's just go. Rush hour. Friday. That meant a packed train with no seats. Miles and Yankee crammed in and held the railing above their heads. Smaller people nestled into their armpits. Bigger people with their hands planted flat on the ceiling of the train car. Most had earbuds in, books fanned open, or were talking to someone beside them. So, about this Halloween party tomorrow, Yankee said. You still going, right? Why do you keep asking me that? Yankee had been bugging Miles about it every day that week. He had already made up his mind that Miles would back out. And Miles had thought about it and was on the verge of flaking until he realized Mr. Chamberlain would be at that party. And then he was buzzworthy. If it meant Miles had a chance to crack the Chamberlain code, there was no way he was missing that party. There was only one problem. Have you even asked your folks? Yankee knew Miles well. I keep forgetting, but I will. Do you even know if you're allowed out of the house this weekend? I mean, you lost your job. And the next day, you broke a desk with your bare hands. Miles glared at Yankee, who shot back a just saying face. The commuters all swayed with the rocking train. Everyone but Miles. You don't have to keep reminding me. Anyway, I'm going, Yankee. Okay, good. Then I should tell you that I've decided that in your honor, I'm going as Spider-Man, Yankee said, keeping a straight face. Just let me hold your suit. It's spandex, right? It'll stretch. Genki paused. Unless, of course, you were planning to go as him. Whatever. They both laughed. A blind man snaked through the crowd, his cane tapping against the shins of many of the riders. He shook a jangling cup and begged, "Can you please spare some change? Can you please spare some change?" "What do you think?" Genki whispered as the blind man approached. Miles concentrated on the old man, studying his hesitation and his moves, the muscles around his eyes. Miles nodded. They both put $1 in his cup. As the train pulled up into Prospect Park, people poured through the doors, allowing space for Miles and Genki to breathe. Elders and teenage jerks snatched up seats, sometimes squeezing in the sliver between the ear butter and a reader. Miles and Genki moved their hands from the railing to the pole as the doors closed. And then, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We hate to disturb you on your way home, and actually have come to provide a perfect start to your weekend. Most of you know what time it is, but in case you in front, from out, or up, from down, most of you know what time it is, but just in case you in from out or up from down, we welcome you to our crazy town with Showtime." A young boy with a raspy voice came strutting up the aisle, bare-chested, and his t-shirt wrapped around his head, his hands cupped around his mouth. "Showtime!" 2 or 3 other boys shouted in unison. "Showtime!" Genki yipped, bouncing his eyebrows at Miles. The music started, and then came the clapping. "Pay attention!" the young one shouted as one of the older dancers started with the footwork. From there came flipping, handstands, pole tricks, and tourists looking on in awe, their mouths hanging down to their lips, fingers in pockets and purses. 30 seconds later, the Showtime boys yelled, "That's our show!" The shirtless boy started clapping again, and the train joining in. He ran up and down the aisle with a hat to collect the donations from the onlookers. Genki held a $20 bill in the air, but when the kid got to the end of the train where him and Miles were standing, Genki wrapped his fingers around the money. "Let's have a dance-off for it." "Genki, don't," Miles whined. "Kid, he doesn't." The kid looked up at Genki. It was like he didn't even hear Miles. "And why would I do that? I already got this money." He shook the hat lightly. "Because you just got about $10 from this car. I have double that in my hand. Either you walk away with 30, or you walk away with 10. You can't lose. It's a safe bet." "And it's me against you?" the kid asked. "Would I look like a fool?" Genki chuckled. "Okay. The best one of y'all." The young boy called the rest of the crew out. Miles tried to shut it all down, but Genki kept waving the 20 around, which pretty much made Miles invisible. "All right, let's do it. Me against you," the captain of the Showtime crew said. He was a wiry kid with braids and big earrings that were obviously fake diamonds. No. You guys got to choose your best, so I got to choose mine." Genki threw an arm around Miles. "Him. He's just playing. He's going to do it himself." "I'm not a dancer," Miles stammered. "Yeah, you don't really look like one," the young boy jabbed. "You either," he said to Genki. Genki instantly went into a body roll. "Don't try me," he warned. "But he's better." Genki leaned over to Miles and whispered, "Just do what you did in the room." Then he turned toward the Showtime guys and said, "Hit the music." The beat came blaring from a janky handheld stereo again, a loop of some kind of electronic song Miles had never heard. Then the clapping came. "Take 2, ladies and gentlemen, friendly competition." The kid with the braids began contorting his body, almost nodding himself on beat. His limbs, long and noodly, were surprisingly strong as he jumped up, grabbed the ceiling rail, and air-biked down the train car. "Give me your bag," Genki said, practically snatching it off Miles' back. "Your turn," the young boy said. "Dude, what in the world have you gotten me into?" Miles asked. But before he could say anything else, Genki pushed him into the invisible dance circle. Everyone watched. Even the New Yorkers, who were accustomed to ignoring this kind of thing. Older black men glanced over their glasses, smirking. Young white ladies sat with their hands in their laps in anticipation. Little kids clapped offbeat. "Go, go, go," Genki said. Miles froze. And then, against Genki's suggestion, Miles broke into his weird convulsion dance. His legs and arms were going everywhere, which way, his face contorting far more than his body, which seemed to have become stone. The kids burst into laughter. He's just warming up," Genki said. He turned to Miles. Do the wall crawl. The what? The wall crawl. Wink, wink. That's when Miles got what Genki has been saying this whole time. He turned his back on everyone, broke out running down the end of a train, weaving through the poles. Once he got there, he jumped and kicked off the door, the one leading to the next train, and crawled onto the ceiling of the train down the other end. No railings, just fingers and feet. Everyone in the car went wild, erupting in a mixture of excitement and confusion. Even the young dancers were clapping and nodding. They cut the music, waving their arms and shouting, "It's over, it's over." Genki put the 20 back in his pocket, then opened his backpack and trotted down the train car, collecting money from everyone. Even the Showtime boys gave him $1. The young dancers glared quizzically at Miles. They even attempted to do the wall crawl, ridiculously trying to grip the ceiling before realizing they were wasting their time. Eventually, the kids left the train and went to the next car for the next show, as Genki yanked bills from his bag and handed them to Miles. "How much is it?" Genki asked. "Around $40, Miles said in disbelief. Genki said as the train pulled into Atlantic Avenue stop, where Miles needed to get off to catch the C train to Lafayette. Miles peeled $4 from the wad and slapped it to Genki. "My fee is 20%. Also, this is going to be the only fun I have tonight before the dinner of doom, so come on." Miles slapped another $4 into Genki's palm, stood up, threw the bag over his head, over his shoulder, and as Miles dashed for the door, pushing as people were pushing in, Genki shouted at Miles' back, "Told you so!" $30 richer, Miles walked through the park toward the house. In the late afternoon, the old men played chess or blasted soul jams from the parked car's window. The little kids wobbling on their bicycles in uneven training wheels. First loves kissed on the wooden benches, soon to be beds for the homeless, next to the old ladies giving out church pamphlets. A breeze was in the air, and the trees in the park swayed, their leaves whispering to Brooklyn. Miles passed the dog walkers, walking both pit bulls and poodles, people coming in and out of the corner bodega, the door chiming over and over again. Fashion folks, draped in the latest trend, snapping pictures in front of a blue sky, rusted over cars. The one that used to be a home for someone, a man that was no longer there. He went on past his house, down the block, and around the corner to the market. Not the bodega, but the actual grocery store. Flowers in buckets lined in front. One of the men who worked at the store was tending to them. "How much?" Miles asked, checking out the roses. 15, the man spat. Miles didn't say anything. He just kept walking. Roses would be nice for his mother, but that would have been half his money. He knew he could have gone in the store and actually bought groceries, which would have been smart. Maybe even convince his father to cook dinner for his mom for a change. She deserved it. But disasters come in all forms, and Miles and his father attempting to make a meal would be nothing less than a disaster. And even if it weren't, it would have resulted in Miles' mother standing over them, her hand to her forehead, as she gave orders in Spanglish and repeated them over and over. "Aluda, mi santos. Help me, saints." Miles had other plans. The next stop was a dollar store. An older lady held the door open for him as Miles slipped into the land of the paper plates, party favors, greeting cards, and the off-branded version of pretty much everything else ever invented. Shaky wheel carts rattled, registers blooped with each scan, plastic bags shished. Miles bopped around, peeking down each aisle before spotting Frenchie. She was squatting down, putting price tags on bathroom air fresheners. "Hey, Frenchie." "Miles?" Frenchie looked surprised to see him, which made sense since Miles was rarely around. "What are you doing in here?" "Looking for flowers." "Flowers?" Frenchie stood up with a smirk, crossed her arms. "You know I know you ain't old enough to be dating yet. I remember when your daddy used to pay me to babysit you. You ain't do nothing but pee on yourself, nonstop. Now you in here looking for flowers?" "Not for a girl. It's for my mom." "Uh-huh. Better be," Frenchie teased. "That's sweet. I hope Martel is as thoughtful as you when he gets older." "Oh, he's going to buy a whole rose garden when he gets to the league." "Hey, you ain't said nothing but the truth." Frenchie put her hands in the air and closed her eyes. She was sending up a 3-second prayer. "Come on." She took Miles to the other end of the store where the flowers were. "Right here." She pointed to the row of greens, browns, reds, and yellows, all of autumn in aisle 2. Y'all don't have real ones? These plastic, Miles said, pinching the fabric petal on each of the fake roses. Kid, you were at the dollar store, Frenchie shot back. Miles picked up one of the roses, smelled it, and immediately felt stupid for doing so. Frenchie added, but just so you know, these $2. After Miles bought the rose, he went next door to Raymond's Pizza. Not to be confused with Ray's Pizza. They weren't the same. Miles figured it would be safer for Raymond to make dinner for the Morales family than Miles and his father to. Pizza always worked, and doesn't require saints. People lined the counter, placing orders by the slice. 2 regulars. Let me get pepperoni. 2 regulars and 2 sausages, please. The men behind the counter cut the pizza into slices, slid them into a big oven to be heated for a few minutes before sliding them back out onto paper plates and pushing the plates down the counter to be bagged up. Next, the guy behind the register called out while slamming the cash register drawer. Let me get a whole pie. Regular, Miles ordered. Whole pie. Got it, the man repeated. Then he moved to the next person, a dude who looked a little older than Miles. Y'all got anchovies? The guy asked. All out of anchovies, Papa. The thought of anchovies on pizza immediately made Miles think of his uncle and ordering a pizza at the Ray's by the Burrock House. A shudder shot through Miles's body. All right, well, let me get pepperoni. Well done. About 5 minutes later, Miles' pizza was being shoveled out of the oven and into a box. It came sliding down the counter. Regular pie, right? The man behind the counter said. Yep. 15. Miles put his money on the counter, grabbed his box, and headed out the door, walking behind the guy who had asked for the anchovy slice. But the door was being held by someone else. Someone familiar. At first, Miles couldn't place him. But as they started walking, the anchovy dude first, the door holder stalking behind him, and Miles bringing up the rear, Miles realized who the middleman was. The thief, his face still black and blue from the lesson Miles taught him. Miles noticed this guy, who was now holding his pizza slice up to his mouth. Was wearing brand new sneakers. Air Max infrareds, the same ones Genki had on at the basketball court. Miles' spidey sense buzzed. The thief kept looking to his left and to his right, making sure no cops were around or no Spider-Man. The jack boy turned around, but it was just Miles, as Miles glaring back at him. And when they got to the corner, the thief cut to the left. The guy with the pizza and sneakers kept straight, and Miles went right. Miles climbed stairs to his house, pizza, and rose in hand. He could hear the music coming from the other side of the door. He jiggled the key just right to unlock it, and it was met by his mother and father in the living room, dancing hand in hand. Horns, cowbell, timbales, and conga drums blaring through the speakers. Salsa. The Fania All-Stars. Hey, Miles, his mother sang out, backstepping, whirling her arms around. His father reached out for her, and she took his hand just for a moment before letting go and whipping into a spin. Celia Cruz's voice wrapped around them like a warm quilt as Miles' father pulled his mother closer for an awkward dip. Rio, the boy has come bearing gifts, Miles' father said, pulling away from his mom. I got a pizza. Miles was in shock. He set the box on the kitchen table. He wasn't expecting his folks to be dancing and laughing. Not that they never did. Miles just figured after the week that they all had, he'd find them in the house staring at the TV, still discussing bills, waiting for him to come home to figure out a possible punishment. Pizza? Miles' mother squealed. So sweet, mijo. Thank you. Did you steal it? Miles' father asked, lifting the lid, the cheesy steam wafting up to his face. Doesn't matter? Miles' father asked, Doesn't matter? Miles jokingly said, as his father stuck his finger in a glop of cheese. Nope. So far, so good. And I got this for you. Miles held the rose toward his mother. Me? She played coy. I thought that was for a girl at your school. 2 or more. No, it's not. Plus, I don't have a girl at school, Miles said. His mother took the rose and held it to her nose. You didn't spill the salsa yet, his father muttered, slapping a slice on the plate he had taken down from the cabinet. Also, is that a plastic rose? Miles let his backpack strap slide from his shoulders, clasped his hands together. This pizza and this rose It's just to say I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and come dance with me, his mother said, reaching out for him. You remember this, Miles. We danced all the time when you were little. Miles's mother jibbed back and forth, her arms and legs moving in sync. When you weren't pissing your pants or pissing the bed or pissing me off, his father joked. Whatever. His mother swatted his father's words and set the rose on a couch. Just follow me. And from there, Miles and his mother danced and danced, his body dipping, dodging, almost as if he were boxing. Less culo, more waistline. Hip, hip. Let your body do what it wants. It's telling you how it wants to move, his mother instructed, until his father cut in. Yo soy un hombre sincero de donde crece la palma, Celia sang. Uepa! Miles's mother hooted, taking his father by the hand. See, son, after you spill the salsa, then you hit her with the spin move. His father boasted. Works every time. A few hours later, Miles sat in his room doing his weekly sneaker clean, a toothbrush to the sole. There was a knock at the door. Miles figured this was when they would drop the hammer. His father was known for doing things like this, waiting a full day laughing and joking, and acting like everyone was fine before, bam, grounded. Come in. And just as he thought, it was his father. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it. They're looking good, man, he said. Thanks. So we need to talk, Miles sighed, but his sigh was cut short by his father's next word. About tomorrow. I wanted to check in with you and make sure you were still up for it. If not, that's totally fine. For the prison? Yeah, I'm up for it. Miles, relieved, set his shoe down. You still up for it? Now Miles' father sighed. Yeah. He came over and took a seat. Let's just make sure that we're good with whatever happens, in case we found out he's not who we think he is, or if he says something upsetting. Prison, it does things to you. Trust me, I know. Miles could hear the discomfort in his father's voice. Could hear his throat drying, but Miles didn't respond. Just looked at his dad and nodded. His father slapped his hands on his own thighs and rocked upon the bed. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. He leaned in, kissed Miles on the forehead. Good night. As he opened the door, he turned back. Oh, and thanks for pizza. A sly grin wiped across his mug, though an anchovy or two would have been nice. With the weight of the day heavy on Miles, sleep slipped into his room as his father slipped out. It wasn't long before Miles was overcome by it. Dream state. And when it happened seamlessly. Miles didn't remember lying down or snuggling in, just sitting on his bed. Then suddenly, as if a blink, sitting on a couch. A leather couch. But not in his house. That house. The one Miles had never been to, but knew so well. The small window of his room. Not palatial, with off-white linen curtains, snatched clothes. His bare feet on a mosaic tile floors. The smell of dirt and wet tobacco smoke. Strands of cat hair floated in the air like tiny spirits. You know the issue I have with you, Miles? The voice came from a seat behind him. He hadn't noticed anyone sitting there despite how large a chair was. It was Mr. Chamberlain. All yellow and flimsy-skinned. All mustache and chapped lips. He sat with his hands together. His nails bitten down to the cuticles. It's your arrogance. You believe you can really save people, that you can do good. Superpowers don't belong to branches that come from a tree like yours, because your tree is rotten to the roots. You, my man, are meant to be chopped down. Miles couldn't speak. It was like his tongue had been cut from his mouth. In a panic, he slid far from the couch, the leather grunting with each inch. Just then, a white cat pounced onto the backrest. Miles looked at it, then back at Mr. Chamberlain, who had now become an even more ghostly figure. Long white hair hanging from his chin, sharpened nose, teeth like grilled corn kernels. Spider-Man. The man spoke, his voice haunting, his smile disgusting. You don't know me, but I know you, and I will come for you. Okay. We're getting somewhere now, huh? All right, so 8 months later, we're jumping right back in. That was the end of chapter 8, and I gotta say that's more than halfway through the book. We have this much left. I'll go ahead and start chapter 9 either tonight or tomorrow just to get us going again. Again, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, people just joining us. Shout out to Jason Reynolds, incredible author. If he was around when I was a kid, I probably would have liked reading more. My goal here on this channel is to really just kind of share some of the work that's not seen everywhere. Things that call to me as a educator of color. You know, we look different. I look different, and these are things that call out to me. So I hope that you guys are enjoying it, and I hope that you can connect to it. And again, just bear with me. I know things are gonna look different and change as I continue to unpack and unload in the basement. I mean, there's a random, again, Bowser outfit right here. We're gonna dress up as Mario, and my wife and I are gonna be Mario and Luigi. Penelope's gonna be Little Toad. So yeah, life is happening all around us, and I just wanted to hop on here and say I appreciate all of you, and I will finish this book and start some other ones. I think I want to get into Ghost next. Just give you a little heads. I mean, I hope Jason doesn't mind me doing all these. Mr. Reynolds, if you're out there and you ever get a whistle, I mean, all kudos to you. I'm not making any money off of this or anything like that. I just wanted to share your work with the world. I did have the pleasure of meeting him online early in his pandemic, and he's incredible. He's amazing, great guy. So I think I'll start Ghost in at the same time as reading Miles Morales, just to kind of set the tone for what's to come here. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, this is Chapter 8, Miles Morales, Jason Reynolds. Out.